and I'm waiting to see if that updates. Hopefully you'll be able to join me. Yes. I had to reconnect my Facebook stream, so I apologize for the delay, and I apologize if you had multiple notifications. But if you're just joining me, go ahead and say hello in the comments, and we'll get started in just a moment. I hope that everybody had a wonderful weekend. What did you do this weekend? Anything great, extraordinary? Say hello in the comments if you can hear me, and then we'll get started. Let's see here. Okay. Yep. If you're just joining me, I had to reconnect my Facebook stream. It was not connecting today. So I apologize for getting a late start. And if you're just joining me, please say hello in the comments. Let me know you can hear me. And if you're just joining me, I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I'd also love to hear what great things you did this weekend. Last week, we parted on Friday with a thought about the decisions that you may be faced with. And so I'm curious also, if that was you, what decisions did you make over the weekend? Were you able to put a time frame and make some decisions that you'd been sitting on? Let me know what that looks like for you, what decisions you made, and what impact that may have already had for you. Whether that's making you feel better, whether it's changed some things that you're doing, maybe you took action towards something as a result of that decision. Love to hear it. And if you're here, say hello. All right. So let's see. Last week we closed out by talking about how indecision steals opportunities from us. And so I hope that you took some time this weekend to make a decision on something that you've been sitting on. In today's topic, I want to focus more on family. So we've talked a little bit about how to map out your future, setting goals, and helping you move in the direction that you want to go, making decisions in your life and focusing on change that you would like to see. And part of what we've spoken about in the past has to do with finding some level of balance in other areas of your life, not just work. So today I want to spend some time talking about one of those other areas. And let me start with this quote from Simon Sinek. It's focus on long-term success, but be willing to make short-term adjustments to get there. I think that kind of summarizes some of the things that we've talked about, what I'm going to talk about today. And yeah, I really like that quote. Again, I get those daily emails from Simon Sinek, and they're often full of little tidbits that are relevant. So it seemed appropriate. So like I said, we've talked previously about finding balance in other areas of your life. You know, do you take time for recreation? Do you take time for proper rest? Do you take time for your family and friends? Today, our focus is going to be on family, because this is an area where I've personally had plenty of struggle with 2 divorces and a bunch of clutter along the way. What I realized, though, is that I could have impacted that. I could have made change that affected my ability to spend time with my family if I had prioritized spending time with my children, my daughters. I wouldn't be looking at some of the circumstances and situations that I'm looking at today. Fortunately, I have a good relationship with one of our daughters, and I'm working every day to work on how I can restore and improve the relationship with our other daughter. But I take sole responsibility for being where I am today. So as I navigated the 48 days material, I stumbled on a few of those things that I just think are extremely important, and they're more relevant now than ever, not just for me, but for many of us. Family, if you think about it, is essentially the smallest form of government. The things we see today in the world of government are a result, a direct reflection of the breakdown in our families. And again, I can attest to this personally. We should be placing emphasis on starting with the family and working outward, not the other way around. We need to get back to spending time on purpose with family, with children, with those most important to us. And it's not enough to say, I want to be a better mother or I want to be a better father. We must define what that looks like for us personally. In order for us to be that person, we have to get clear on what that means to us. And then, like everything else we've talked about, you have to make a plan and take action to spend that time with your family on purpose. Be intentional about the time that you're spending with them. And that's where, that's one of my weak points in the past, is that even if I had set that time aside, I wasn't being intentional with that time. And as a result, I've missed opportunities along the way to really get to know my daughters earlier, to share in those moments that bring them true joy and happiness, and help them to discover for themselves, what that looks like. And those are the opportunities that, if I had to look back and say I regret anything, it's not spending that time intentionally would be one place I would probably land on. And I'm not saying I have a bunch of regrets. I certainly have a bunch of lessons learned and things that I know that I want to be better in. And this is one area in particular. So I hope that's helpful to you. But yeah, so maybe you decide that, you want to have game night or dinner at the table together. How many of us are doing that these days? I see it less and less. And when I look back at TV shows that portray the modern family as a TV dinner family sitting on the couch around the television, I can't help but think of how hard I've tried to get away from that environment and that way of life. But I look around and I see so many people are doing that. They're just disconnected, whether it's attuned to the television or they're busy in their work, they're busy in other aspects of their lives. Even when they're present at dinner, they're not present with the people who mean the most to them. And that's what I'm really talking about today, is just being intentional and being present with the people who you're closest to and the people you want to be closest to. And so, that game night, dinner together, whatever that looks like for you, I just encourage you to define that and then start making that plan and taking action towards achieving that result. Now, again, I'm guilty as a father of not being present as I should have, or as much as I wanted to be. But I've told you, it's not come without a price, right? I reflect almost daily on changes that I should have made and been able to enjoy those moments more. And I'm working hard to recover from that mess. So take time today to affect that change. If you don't have proper balance in this area of your life, then decide that you're going to change that today. As you do, all of the things we've talked about, improving work, improving the business that you want to create, whatever it looks like, as an added bonus, those things will begin to work better as well. So I have another quote. This is, so whatever the era, whatever the times, one thing will never change. Fathers and mothers, if you have children, they must come first. You must read to your children, and you must hug your children, and you must love your children. Your success as a family, our success as a society, depends not on what happens in the White House, but what happens inside your house. And that was by Barbara Bush. And what a wonderful quote. With everything that's going on, I think it was just great timing that I landed on that one. So I'll close today with some things to think about. But of course, before I do, again, I'm always open to your comments, your questions, and I'll jump back over to the chat in a second, and we can have some conversation if you're open to that, of course. And anyway, I'll get back to the chat in just a moment. But here's three things that I'll leave you with to think about. What are the kinds and lengths of vacations you will take this year? Number two, what would be your goals for free time with your family and friends? And number three, how could you better use the time that you currently spend watching TV, surfing the internet, or scrolling on your phone? Of course, as always, we can continue this conversation in our Facebook community. Feel free to join us there at the Clarity Collective. Oh, I left the comment up there, so you should be able to see it. Gilbert. Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm getting back over here to the chat. Will, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Angela, always good to see you. Thank you. Yes, Jamie, I love that quote, and I don't think it could have been more timely. What a great woman, Barbara Bush. Angela says, I agree. Everything does indeed start from the homes and the individual level. Absolutely. We cannot impact the world around us if we don't first look at ourselves and how we can simply be better. Kindness goes a long way, but if we're struggling with something, it can be very difficult to be kind to other people. And the same thing can be said about in our own homes. Negativity spreads like wildfire. Negative comments, negative thoughts, negative aura. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but that negativity spreads like wildfire. If someone in your home is having a rough time and they're stuck in this negative space, that most of the time that tends to be projected on the people around them. And you have to be able to turn that off. You have to be able to realize, one, it's not my fault. It's not me that is causing this negativity. There's something going on here. And maybe I don't have any control over it. That's okay. I know what I can control. And I can control the way I think about it, the way I feel about it, and the way I react towards it. That's an interesting thought, Angela. Positivity and negativity gets handed down from generation to generation. I think there are learned behaviors that do tend to get passed on. And if you live in a negative space, obviously the people around you are affected by that negative space. Until someone comes along and holds their hand, they may be very well confined to an environment with negativity. But I think that it just takes the right person coming along and smiling and showing them a picture of a better place that can move them out of that space. So it's that's a great thought. So what did y'all do this weekend? I started this with talking about last Friday's message, which was moving away from indecision. And so I'm curious if any of you would share with me what decisions you made over the weekend and how that may have impacted you so far. You're so kind, Angela. Thank you for that note. And I also failed to end the week last week with celebrating any small wins. So if you have any small wins or big wins, of course, I'd always love to hear those. So if you have something that um, bonus, if the something that you have accomplished as a result of any of our chats, I'd love to hear that, of course. But I'm excited for you if you have any wins to celebrate, or mental breakthroughs, emotional breakthroughs, anything like that would be wonderful to hear about as well. And before I close today, I will say I'm waiting for the comments to catch up, but I will say that I'm not sure how much more specific work content we'll be talking about, because the next phases of the workshop material that I've been, I don't know, teasing is not the right word, but the workshop material that has caused me to do some reflection and share my journey with you moves more into some specific tactical implementation with regards to resumes and other components. And so if that's of interest to you, of course, reach out to me. We can talk more about what the workshop itself would look like. If you need guidance in those areas, or you're looking for ways to improve finding the work that you're passionate about that can be both meaningful and profitable, that's what that's about. And the rest of it is more direct application that I don't know if that's where I want to stay on topic with this live stream. So I'm curious what topics you might have for us to discuss. I'm open to talking about them, sharing my experiences, sharing my thoughts. And so far, I think it's gone okay for those of us that have been here. Anyway, I don't see any more comments. So I'll just say thank you so much for joining me again today. And I wish you a great rest of the week. Also, Jamie is here. Hello. And she put a comment in here. I almost jumped off. Let's see. Put too much emphasis on others and not on me. So I decided that I will definitely focus on me after her daughter, River, going into the future. I owe my kiddo my best self and spend too much time dwelling on the past. What's past is prelude. Absolutely, Jamie. I love that thought. I love that statement, and I appreciate that you shared that with us. And absolutely concur. It's yeah. You got to put your best self first in order to put your best self into others, and that's most important when it comes to our children. And that's one thing that I certainly should have gotten better at sooner. And I wished I'd realized that there's not much I can do to change the past, but I can change today, and continue to work on change tomorrow. But yeah, so I appreciate you sharing that with us. Well, anyway, let's continue this conversation. If you have small wins to share, if you have other things that you're working on, I'd love to hear about them in the Facebook group. And again, as always, look forward to seeing your encouragement of others there. And I appreciate all that have engaged there so far. Angela says she learned the hard way that spreading myself too thin often ends up eventually having a negative effect on others as well. Yes, that's why we're talking about balance in those areas of our life. If we focus all of our time and energy on work, which is what most Americans are facing today, the reason they are not present when they are at home is because they're involved in their minds at work, even if they're not actively engaged in work. And that's why we're talking about it. It's important to spend time in recreation. It's important to spend time. Well, and let me back up to recreation for a second. I may have said this before, but I believe, and I know not everyone agrees, but that we are all created in the image of the Creator. What does that mean to me? Well, I think about, I feel like I have a distinct lack of creativity sometimes. And when I think about the statement I just provided, that we are all created in the image of the Creator, if that is true, then that means every one of us has the ability to create. And it might look differently for some. There are people who are skilled with creating with their hands. There are people who are skilled with creating in art. There's various types of creativity that can be seen. But not all of us are in touch with that. And it takes deliberately spending time in recreation in order to be more in touch with our creativity. It takes time intentionally resting in order to get back in touch with creativity. All the things. It just requires that we spend more intentional time finding some semblance of balance in the other areas of our lives. And we spend, as Americans, even if I think you might be Korean, Angela, and that's, but you're here in the U.S., I know, so I'm not positive and I'm not assuming, but just curious. Anyway, in the United States, for sure, we as a culture spend way too much time focused on work, and it consumes us. And I'm telling you, we can't let that happen if we want to have a better life. That's the essence of it. Got way off of my message for today, but that's okay. I love these conversations with you, and I thank you so much for spending this time with me. Korean, living in Korea, and looking super Korean too. Okay, so 안녕하세요. Did I get that right, Will? Oh, here's an interesting comment from Jamie. I do think that the military does an exceptional job at bringing the Army family closer than the actual family we have as time goes on. Unfortunately, it puts a heavy toll on our family, and I can see where spouses and children become resentful of the people with whom we are stationed. All anyone can do is try to salvage the time we have remaining with those that we love and hope they forgive us one day. Oh, you're going to bring tears to my eyes, Jamie, because that's me. That is me perfectly. I know that my Army family came first. That's what we were taught. Whether it's overtly or not, that's what we're taught. And nothing against the society of the United States military, because they have their purpose, they have their mission, and at the end of the day, it has to be accomplished. You know, we have to have that in place. But it did come with a great cost to my own family. And I'll just say it out loud because I'm not a member of that community anymore, that they speak out loud that family is important. They say that publicly, that family is important. But when you look at the training schedule, you look at all the things that they ask of you, they look at all of those other things. If you were to take a close look at it, it's just words. That's how I feel about it. True or not, that's how I feel about it. That's how I experienced it. That's how I lived it, and it came at a cost. And yes, I am now spending time and energy in trying to salvage any of that that's left, and yes, hoping for forgiveness. So, and my Korean was accurate. Thank you both, Will and Angela. All of us, yes. Thank you, Jamie. All of us. I'm not alone. Well, and it's such a sad state of affairs. And when you wake up one day and realize that it might be too late, it is. And that I hate, if I can affect change for one other person, that'd be the one thing I would try and do today, and wake you up to help you realize that you need to spend that time. When your daughter or your son comes to you and says, Daddy, Mommy, can we do this thing? Stop what you're doing. Do that thing. Because when they're 4 years old, that's the most important thing to them in their life. And when they're 17 and you've told them, not right now, honey, too many times, they won't ask anymore. I can promise you. Which takes me to another comment. Since we're here, let's continue this conversation right here. As always, you can continue and share your thoughts in the Facebook community where it's a bit more private, not publicly on my page. Either way is fine. Yeah, wake up. Tim, great to see you, friend. It's been a long time, my friend. Tim Cologne and I were in Afghanistan together with 5th Corps. Not just Afghanistan, but we enjoyed beautiful Germany together. Good to see you, my friend. How's retirement treating you? I lost my train of thought. So I was sharing about family and military, and just take those moments. That's what I was going to say. So take those moments, right? It doesn't take 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it takes out of your day to just, not even just your children, but other people in general, focus your attention on them and help them live in a moment. When someone shares something with you, and this is coming straight out of the resiliency program in the Army, but when someone takes time to share something with you, know that they chose you to share that thing with. Allow them to live in that moment for a minute. Smile with them. Ask them honest questions. Hey, well, how does that make you feel? What color is your new truck? How's it going in retirement? It doesn't take much time or energy to just help someone relish in a moment and remember that they chose you. When it comes to your children, they also chose you. Remember that, because again, when they're 17 years old, if you've told them not right now because you're busy, they won't forget it. You're teaching them that you're too busy, and they will often find other ways, other people to share that with. So don't let that be you. Yeah, so I got way off track from our message for today, and I appreciate all of you joining me. And I think that's it for today. So be sure to share in the Facebook group some of your wins from last week, small wins, big wins, things that might not feel like wins. What positive experience came of those situations? Share those as wins. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and have a great